Live from Houston, Texas. Welcome everyone to today's episode of What Makes You Tick. I'm really excited that you're here. But before we dive into today's episode, just a few quick housekeeping, as always, some notes to take care of our listeners and our guests. I'm excited to connect with this gentleman today, so let's get to some notes before we begin. This is an interactive live session, and you're encouraged to participate and ask questions. Absolutely connect. Drop us a note, even if it's later and if it's after, that's fine. So ask a question, drop it in the chat. I'll bring some insight into the conversation. We'll use LinkedIn's DM and a comment section for the event posting and any behind the scenes coordination. Just feel free to drop me a note and let me know if there's anything going. Look, from time to time, LinkedIn will drop you and disconnect. Just reconnect. No big deal. We want you here. We also know that many of you are listening while commuting and or working. So we encourage you, however you can, participate. Even quiet listeners are an important part of our community. Thanks for being here. Now let's get started. My guest today is a gentleman that I first met at Cup of Joy, actually the first Cup of Joy I went to. We immediately became friends. Back then we talked a lot about job. We talked about family and really mainly focused on what kind of made us tick back then. I would describe him as with a popular quote, a jack of all trades and a master of none. But then I'd be lying to you because that's not complete. He's a jack of all trades, his master of none, but still always better than a master of one. He strives to never leave knowledge and wisdom alone and embody his personal and his professional journey, or it has embodied his personal and professional journey. He has a diverse journey. Interesting. 6 years in the Navy. Thank you, sir. 20 years in oil and gas, 3 years in entertainment, 4 years in technology, spanning numerous disciplines, leading to his current role and working at cutting edge technologies like AI, which is really a hot topic these days, and XR. He's completed his undergraduate in 2004, and he loved it so much that he had to go back and get his master's, which will be completing soon, in clinical mental health counseling to become an LPC therapist when he graduates this May. He did this after a life-changing event, which I don't know, so we're interested to see. He's a loving husband, father, and a friend to many along this path that he has created as a trade of none. Please welcome my friend, today's guest, Sean McCoy, as we find out what makes him tick. Sean, how's it going, man? Give us some insight.
Well, just thank you for what you're doing. I love the podcast. I'm a big podcast fan. I've hosted numerous podcasts of myself. I've been on a lot of different episodes, and they're my favorite thing. I'm that guy that's always asking, do you listen to this podcast? Or I heard this on this podcast, because I think it's such a beautiful medium still. That allows people like you to get their voice out there and for us to enrich that knowledge and wisdom that you were just talking about. Because there's a lot of popular people and we know who they are, but the other voices that we may not always get to hear unless we go to a Cup of Joy and meet somebody that are out there that are worth listening to. And I think you're one of them. So
thank you. And a lot of that has been inspired by the Cup of Joy and the group that we've had, just simply because there's so much out there now. But one of the first things I always do, because the show isn't about me, it's about you. Give some people some insight to who is Sean, and dude, what makes you tick?
What's funny is that the answer to that question is different today than it would have been a year, 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. And I think that's regardless of what makes me tick, I think in the spirit of the show that you try to go out there and create value and knowledge for other people is to realize that we're going to be different people. And what makes us tick now is probably not going to be the same thing that makes us tick later. Right. And really the part of that I think is the most intriguing is what is it like to go through that type of journey on a personal level, having, if you do a lot of different things where you have to accept a lot of just changes in your life and what that's like. How do you go through transformation? How do you gain wisdom? Back when we used to do Cup of Joey, the question was always, what is your why? And my why was just the pursuit of knowledge for the sake of transformation in the spirit of wisdom. And what that really means from a mouthful standpoint, because that sounds all nice and neat, is what do you do? What makes you tick may change in light of a different perspective, and how the challenge of that different perspective can help shape you into something you didn't know you could be, or that you didn't expect that you would be. I mean, living and sitting with that difference, I think, is what I would say to that.
No, look, I love that. And you and I were talking earlier. One of the things I had to go back to education. This is my second year in education, and last year was really a life-changing event. Actually, the last 3 years have been a big life-changing event for me. And in education, seeing the kids and where they're connected and how they're disconnected and how dysfunctional our school system is, it's good. Don't get me wrong, but how it needs to change and how it's still like, we do so much for the kids. It's almost like, what are we going to do when we're older than we are now? And who's going to take care of us? And what are they doing? Those types of things, and being able to relay the message of what we're doing is amazing. But I was telling somebody today, I miss the interaction of the adults. I love the kids and I want to be there for the kids. And I always tell my quote is, I'm going to show up because I might be the only positive energy that kid sees that day. So I'm going to, one, be real. And two, I'm going to try to bring as much energy as I can. Now, today I had to call a couple of them out because they were doing the wrong thing. But at the same time, it's like, I want to be some type of energy for them. Now, for you, I know you've got a diverse career path. We talked about the Navy too. How did you decide that you wanted to go from the Navy way back then to what you're about to enter here in May?
Well, I mean, it's so I listened to a couple of your episodes, obviously, like I said, and I know that you're big on quotes and inspiration. And I think it reminds me of a conversation I just got off the phone with a friend of mine I work with, and she said something, and it reminded me of another quote that I think explains that in a way. And slow is the fastest way. Mm-hmm. That it takes a long time to learn a lot of things. And if we can understand that fundamentally, because it seems like, well, you start out in the Navy or start out as an engineer at, like a big oil company, or start out as a teacher, then that's what you're always going to be. And, nothing else is ever going to change in that context. But that isn't that isn't typically the story. Or even if it is, you're still not going to be what makes you tick. And the spirit of your show is not it. And even if it doesn't, maybe your job doesn't change, your profession doesn't change, but what happens to you, right? I should kind of be on the lookout for challenges and not to avoid them or just to conquer them, but it's a chance to test. It's like the scientific method. You're testing a hypothesis. You're wanting to see what is real, in order to reveal something else that you may not know. And that gaining of knowledge it's a beautiful thing. It's going to be very, very difficult at the same time. Because to your point, to your original question, it's hard to sit here at 51 years old and wish that I had taken this master's degree when I was 18 instead of starting when I was 48.
Right.
And so how you get there, I mean, it's probably long and boring. I would just say, almost not even on purpose. Like, I didn't even set out that way. I didn't set out knowing I would even get here. Although when I was in boot camp in the Navy, they used to call me the cowboy psychologist, because I was from Texas, and that's all. And your identity is always where you're from.
Yeah.
But I was always trying to fix people, help people in a way. Now I spent a lot of decades trying to do that in earnest, and probably not doing it very well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it wasn't until I got a formal education, along with a lot of decades of experience, that I feel like now I might have a chance to actually influence people enough that they can empower themselves to be the best version of who they are, and to understand not only themselves, but others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's funny because you're talking about, we were talking pre-show. One of the things that's a huge impact on me right now is I started I've been going back to church, but now I live a mile from my church. So it takes me like a minute to get there. And one of the big, like, I find that, like, I walk in and I listen and I take in and I watch. I don't interact like I should. And that's one of the things I want to do more of. But right now we're talking about Moses. And you think about how old he was, or whenever he gained the knowledge and led his people. I mean, he was 80 when he started doing that. So it's like, but he had to go through 40 years before that of wandering around the wilderness to figure out. And like our story, just the same thing we're talking about, that's what it feels like. It feels like there's a time of wondering, and it's pulling all the pieces together. And what's funny, and we haven't talked about this either. with what Cup of Joey's done and what we've done with Cup of Joey, I know I give this a whole lot of conversation, but it's one of those things that made a huge impact on me. Coming from a divorce, going through starting my own business after quitting a job that I was very successful and really liked, going into all these things led up to different stages of my life. And some of the stuff, one of the things that has come up now is education. What if we could teach our kids to understand their purpose, just who they were, and be able to make that connection at a younger age, and then later in life help them find that path, like in school, and be able to do that. And we miss that. Like, that would be something that would be huge, I think, and you're not doing all the work. They're doing the work because of exactly what you said. They're looking to search for that knowledge, and they understand that knowledge and the reason that they're searching for it. Right now, they don't know. All they're doing is watching snippets of stuff that comes on and then going, and it creates clarity and trust. And how do you feel about trust and clarity? Or has there any been big event that's opened your life or opened your mind? But something like, for me, it was divorce. That was easy. But what about you?
So mine was a psychedelic dose, a heroic dose of psychedelic mushrooms. That was my big event that opened my mind. And so in the summer of July of 2022, after 5 years, this is how much of a nerd I can be. After 5 years of research, reading about every type of psychedelic you can imagine, every podcast I could get my hands on, every book I could get my hands on, every documentary I could get my hands on, and just contemplating in that chrysalis of just what is this about. And a lot of that was social. There's a lot of social impacting as a kid of the 90s or a kid of the 80s who grew up just saying no and had massive addiction in my family. I didn't drink till I was 21. I was a square that way. I mean, a couple of times I was in school, but I was always one that drove. I was in the military for 3 years and didn't drink because it was illegal, and got made fun of for doing just that, for obeying the law. And so this wasn't some sort of escape, right? And it wasn't some sort of like numbing. And, like I said, I have massive addiction in my family. I've seen it destroy people's lives that I'm very close to. So I'm not it is not my MO. Like 99% of the people that I know, up to and including people like my wife, when I came up with this idea and decided I was going to pursue it, just were kind of a little bit flabbergasted. And so taking a step into that unknown and challenging what you think and who you are from an exploratory standpoint. Right. And not from a numbing standpoint, but from an intense evaluation, kind of almost like a microscopic viewpoint of your life, as well as expanding yourself out into this world. And just looking at all the things that I'd read and the impressions I was given, I decided to jump, not just off to like a super deep dive, because typically that dose rate is super. Typically people don't start there. It's kind of like starting with a marathon. Wow. Kind of thing. And there was a lot to say about that. But one of the big takeaways that when that was over, was I started my master's in October, and this was in July. And it's turned out, typically, people in the psychedelic world will start getting all nervous because they're like, look, not everything that you come across, not everything that you think after a psychedelic episode or trip is necessarily something you should jump on, like divorce your wife, quit your job, something dramatic. Like, these aren't always the smart things to do, especially after a situation like that, an experience like that. But for me, it turned out to be something that is, in the end, going to save my life. Looking where things are now, where I am personally, where I'm going, and what I want to be. The other day, I told my wife, I want to be an emotion and behavior scientist. That is what I want to do with the rest of my life, is understand human emotion and understand behavior from a true scientific evaluation standpoint, not just to nerd out, write papers and that kind of stuff. Right. But then sit down with people like you. Yeah. Human beings, because the research in academia is all great, but if we can't bring it into somebody's life and give them the tools and the perspective necessary for them to regulate emotion. Yeah. Right. Understand others and what they're doing. Why am I doing that? What is all this about? These super important questions that go beyond quarterly statements and P&L and stock price and share price. I just think there's a little bit more to life than those kinds of things. And so that one event, more than anything, has put me on a path now that to me, it's almost to the point where it's scary to think where my life would be now if I hadn't done that. But I do want to caveat it with one thing, and I always tell people this when it comes up. At the same time, it is not a requirement. You don't have to do it. It's kind of like, to me, I kind of look at it like almost like a spiritual thing. There are many paths to get to the answer, right? You don't have to go off and throw a bunch of magic mushrooms down your throat and to figure it out. There's all kinds of other methodologies that you can use. And it is not a requirement. It's not something that you have to do. It also has to be done properly and with the right perspective. And it needs to be respected like anything else, especially like this. It's not like going and having a beer and having too many and just kind of going home and sleeping it off.
Right.
It is not even necessarily enjoyable, but it will challenge you and push you in ways that you were not expecting. And then on the other side of that, you get to decide what all that means. And go from there.
God, I have so many questions, man. We don't have time for all of them because I'm the guy that, from my perspective, I smoked a little pot here and there, but it was not something that turned me on. X was big. I mean, you're a guy of the 80s, same as I. X was huge. I did one half of a hit one day and said, no, never again, because you could see how good that was. So I can imagine, like, and I knew people that did psychedelical, but they did mushrooms.
Doesn't roll off the tongue. Yeah.
They did mushrooms. And I couldn't imagine the experience. Just briefly, what was the experience like?
Well, the short answer is there's no way that I can adequately describe it in words. So I would ask you to try to explain what would be, can you adequately describe the way you love your children? You can give me a bunch of words about it, but you can't quite get there.
Yeah.
When you see something that brings awe to your being, when you have something that inspires you, you can't, the feeling you get when a student, you mentioned one of your episodes, a student that came up to you and mentioned that you'd had an impact on their life. So if I ask you to qualify that in words or some sort of measurement, you could try. But it's going to be inadequate at best.
Correct.
So I would say that, not to cop out, but it's absolutely inadequate to do that. I can tell you the functionality of it is a serotonergic enhancement. So it works on the serotonin receptors in your body. There's a mood, kind of like how you feel kind of thing that's involved. But none of these, and there's people out there like Huberman and the rest of these guys and Dr. Robert Carhart Harris, they can give you all the functionality as how it works on your systems and what receptors it gives and how it stays there. But none of it can explain what it actually creates up in here.
Right.
To see music, to feel colors, to touch something that's alive, and to have the vibration, the very essence, the very frequency of life from a physics standpoint that goes through these things that we measure and give kind of like, numbers on a piece of paper, to feel the very life force that is in all living things, to feel connected to that, and to see things like sacred geometry, and they call them hallucinations, and I really dislike that word. I would say it's more of a revelation of what you can already see, but just like the FedEx arrow in the logo. You never see it, but then when you see it, that's all you see, but then it reveals to you something else. Or when you experience something and you in a coaching mechanism or a teaching mechanism, when something is revealed, when you see a kid reveal the answer, they can see something they didn't see before and understand it.
Yeah.
Right. So this kind of like happening, but with an incredible amount of intensity and in a way that just defies what we would call like reality and logic. Things that don't make sense, that do make sense, but don't at the same time. That was my experience with it. It's part of the reason why you hear about things like bad trips, and what's really interesting is what you never hear about is the actual medicine, and I do believe it's medicine. Everything that goes in your body is a medicine. That it unto itself is your body is literally made to receive it and process it, and out it goes. So you can have not an overdose, but you can be hit with something you weren't expecting. And the problem is, unlike it doesn't depress systems. but it literally creates part of his neuroplasticity, part of it is inside the brain. There's a lot of science in this. It kind of gives room, like expanding the buffer of a size of a pipe, or for like, it can be for water or for Wi-Fi or whatever, and lets more things in. And so other things that your brain, that your personality has kind of put away, all of a sudden there's room for these things. And then memories, thoughts, ideas, perspectives come raining in, and then you can't stop it. Wow. And that's not what you signed up for on the way to a Leonard Skinner concert or a Pink Floyd concert. You're just wanting to have a good time, and all of a sudden you're dealing with some of the most intense, dramatic, traumatic aspects of your life, and it's not the right time for it. And so that's where a lot of the bad trips come from, because you're not in a state of mind to understand it, or even close.
That's correct. All right, we're gonna keep going. We'll integrate more of this into it, but let me take, because like, that's an amazing story, and the fact that you shared that is great. But let me do a quick reset, our first room reset here. Like this, today's my 17th podcast. What makes you tick? It's an authentic, relaxed, purposeful conversation centered around trust, clarity, and traction. Why? Well, I mean, why? Because you just saw why. What a big impact, trust, clarity, and traction. So it's really to incorporate the purpose into what we do and make an impact in others' lives. How? Through sharing business, personal stories, and building a culture of trust while creating clear, impactful messages as a leader, with insight on how we can build traction into our life and our business. My guest today is Sean McCoy, who I've known for a little bit. Look, Sean, before we get back into all that, we skipped because that was an amazing story. And I could share, honestly, I mean, you know, I was a square, but I'm not going to share any of my stuff because I was a square, sort of. Sure. I was a square peg in a round hole, and a round peg in a square hole, all at the same time. But I do want to go back real quick, because one of the things I love to do here is kind of push our book, because I think reading, I was not a reader, and I'm going through with all these kids, and you know, I can watch them. I'm watching them, and you talk about seeing things that you don't normally see. I'm watching them struggle because they're all new to the language. They don't spell well. A lot of them have dyslexia, especially the kids that I'm working with this year, and they keep telling me I can't spell, and I'm like, okay, neither can I. And I can't. I grew up Kunas, so I don't know if there's a dyslexia there, but we put an EAUX on stuff that's not supposed to be there. But I never could. So reading has become, or listening, you're talking about your mind. For me, listening as I run and then taking notes and going back and reviewing those has been a huge impact on my life. I'm going to let you go first. Give me your book first.
Yeah. And so before I do, I just want to confirm something that I know you joke around about Audible and you can't read. But the science proves that listening to a book is just as effective, if not more, than reading it. That's true.
Good. I would say yes.
Yeah. And somebody who has to read books, because if my family sees me with a book in my hand, they think that I'm busy. So I listen to it. And it also helps with the drive. So I had a couple of ideas on this one.
Yeah.
And one, I'll mention, the first one I mentioned awe before. There's a book by a guy named Dr. Keltner, and he's a UCal Berkeley psychologist, and his work around emotions was the inspiration for the Pixar movies that had like the little angry guy and the anxiety, so it's his work. This is inspiration. He's a consultant, all that good stuff. But it's a book called Awe, like AWE, Awe, and it's about the science of it. So it's not just about that. Hey, these things are, that you experience it, but he actually breaks down how it literally has a physiological impact, and a mental and a developmental impact on you, as far as that goes, and how important it is to experience all, and what it takes, because you can't manufacture it in a sense. Now you can go watching sunset and try.
Yeah.
You can almost have to be in tune to put yourself in those situations to find awe in the world. And then when you do, I mean, it has value, like real value, in terms of what it means to you. So I would say that book. And then the other two are kind of a little bit more heady, if you will. One is The Second by Carol Anderson. It's a history of the Second Amendment.
Okay.
It's a social book. It's a very challenging book about the history of the Second Amendment, which I think from a social standpoint I'll just leave it at that. And then the other one, which I think definitely would work, be interesting across all frames of life. And it's a book that has had an unexpected impact on my life. Is a book called The Science of Revenge by James Kimmel. And James Kimball wrote this book based on his entire, the last, I guess it's now 20 years he spent after spending a long time in the legal system. He was a lawyer fighting out and seeking justice, retributive justice in the court systems, and just a lifetime of dedicating himself to revenge. Found himself in a spare bedroom on the brink of suicide because it was, I guess, no surprise, or shouldn't be, that it wasn't fulfilling, and it left him even worse than he was before when he started. And so he turns around, and now he's a professor at Yale teaching this. But what he does, and it impacted me because I found out, and he argues that actually revenge is the world's most deadly addiction. That we're actually addicted to revenge.
I could see that.
So you think about like just watch the television and tell me what the movies are coming out about, what the songs are coming about. What is the one trope? What is the one narrative that we are taught all the time? If somebody does something to you, Bryan, well, go get them. You better get them. They hurt you, you hurt them 10 times as worse back. Right? And we have a massive cultural issue. We suffer from a lot of things in our society. I think the absolute worst is the expectation of retributive justice and revenge.
No, it's fun. Okay, so one of my articles, so I write articles and put them on LinkedIn, and one that you'll see is about it's funny how we impact each other and how things are coming roundabout. When I was a kid, we went to Vacation Bible School. And I'll never forget, for whatever reason, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, stuck with me. It's always been, honestly, I will say, if I would have taken that mindset of the revenge, I probably would have played baseball longer. But I couldn't because of that. It's like that's the motivator. When I'm sitting here listening, going, oh my God, that's right. But I'm not one that thinks that way. Does that make sense?
Well, no, it does, but so I've heard you talk. So when people told you that you weren't good enough, people told you that you weren't fast enough, and all the rest of this stuff, right? Part of your motivation is you're going to show them that you are, right?
Okay, right? I see that. Yeah,
see what I'm saying? And so within every time somebody does something wrong to you, in our society, like at the same time we glorify the two greatest emotions that we glorify that are absolutely devastating are anger and lust, right?
Yeah.
And so everything is, think about name your favorite comic book heroes: Incredible Hulk, Spider-Man, Batman, Superman. Like, they're all motivated by anger and revenge.
That is true. That is
every single one of them. When does the Hulk transform?
When he's angry. He's the one that's obvious. Yeah, absolutely. And you always, and even the Marvel movies, which I love with my kids, you see that in the movies.
Right. What's the answer? It's Hulk smash. It's just really simple.
No, the funny thing is the way they make them good guys is they use that, but they flip it later on to where they're not. They don't keep using it. They just use it and then let it go and then flip their mindset. Whereas the villain always has it. That's always the motivator, no matter what.
And it's real. And we don't mind Hulk smashing aliens coming over to take over our world, right?
Yeah. No.
But when it comes to human beings interacting, it is rarely that black and white.
Look, my LSU Tigers. Yeah, I got the beat up cup because we got beat. I'm trying not to want revenge on Ole Miss because that's been a rivalry. But as far as my book, I always pick kind of in order of the way I read them. And this week happens to be called The 12-Week Year by Bryan Moran. And it inspires you to get more done in 12 weeks. And just briefly, he challenges you to rethink the goals in 12 weeks and find the pitfalls and look at how you can find more success out of it. And he does it with 5 basic principles. One is redefining the year. Instead of being a full year, redefine it into 12 months, 12 weeks. 2, increase the urgency in some of the things that you need to do. 3, let me rephrase that. Refocus the urgency you need and focus on the ones that you need the most urgent. The other stuff can go by its side. 3, accountability. Just make sure that you're accountable in what you do. And 4, make a commitment to what you're going to do and anything you're going to do. And then 5, trying to achieve greatness. And it was one of those things that it's funny because we do quarters now, and everything we focus on now is quarters. And I'm listening to this book or rereading it, re-listening to part of it. And I'm thinking, this is exactly what we do is we look at shorter cycles now. And when you're doing that, you benefit from a performance boost, sharper focus, stronger accountability, and faster execution. You're looking to get something done in 12 weeks versus a year. You tend to shrink what you really focus on. And I like that. I needed to hear that too. I needed to revisit that. Nice. So no, that was good. Look, one of the things that we always, and you faced a challenge that helps us to grow. Is there any other challenge that you've faced that, you could see the trust and the clarity in? One of the big things that I've come across lately, and it's funny because I don't know if you've heard what I've told the story before. The way this came about, or this podcast, was because we were doing Cup of Joey, and one day Andrew sat, and he and I were in a conversation. He goes, "Have you ever taken the test?" I said, "No." He said, "Take the test, and it shows you your why, your how, and your what." And I'm looking at this, and I go, "Oh my!" I'm reading it, going, "That's me." I've never seen anything put me into words like that. Immediately connected, and guess what they were? They were trust, clarity, and traction. And that was my why, my how, and my what. And as I'm going through this now, all the time you hear about clarity. I got clarity in this event, or now it creates clarity, or I heard you say this. Is that correct? Those types of things. Is there anything that other than your mushroom binge that helped you or created clarity in your life?
Yeah, I would say it's a byproduct of that. It's sitting with, so the trip itself is one thing, but the integration, the application is really where the magic happens, the true magic. One of the big other messages that I got that evening that they provided clarity for me, but that is very difficult to sit with, was the fact that I'm not special.
Yeah.
And so sitting with.
So what'd you do with it when you sat with that?
Well, that's part of the challenge. I'm still sitting with it, and it's 3 years later. So I'm still trying to figure out, what does that mean?
Okay. So we're all unique. Maybe that's a better word, but what does special mean anyway?
Just in terms of like, well, I mean, that's the best first question, is to define what you mean by that.
Yeah.
I would say that it's special in terms of just maybe experience, special in terms of perspective, special in terms of just insight, contemplation, cognition, pride of place, whatever you want to call it. Just that almost that if the world doesn't care if I'm here or not, in that sense, right? Whether or not I was going to be alive or not the next day didn't mean anything. And I don't mean to be trite about that. And I'm not trying to say that before that I thought the whole world revolved around me. But there is a sense of selfishness that we all inherently have that no, it's got to mean something. It's people are going to be sad and whatever, and they will be for a bit, but they'll continue to move. So it's more that part about not being special. It's not that I'm not unique, or not that you're not unique. And ironically,
yeah.
Everyone is unique.
Correct.
That's the biggest irony, is that we are special unto ourselves relative to, no matter how much you and I have in common.
Yeah.
There's going to be something different about us. Like but at the same time, we're not so special that the world is not going to stop. The world isn't going to stop because we're not here.
I'm laughing with you because that's actually, it's so funny, ironic, not haha funny. That's a lot of the things that I'm kind of going through right now, as far as, and I think it just comes with age and wisdom. And when you reach a certain combination of that, it unlocks where you are. Yours happened to be mushroom. Mine happened to be just some not things that normally would go your way, not going your way. And it's created this quiet spot where used to, I had kids and I had people, I had family, and I had opportunities to go out on a date. I can't find a date that I'm interested in, number one. So I don't feel very special there. That's kind of a joking thing, but honestly,
I know what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like not being able to find a job with all these things that I was qualified, not even getting a call, over 300 applications, not even getting a call and having a possibility. Hey, that might be possible. It makes you wonder. And it's not about I don't know if it's about being special or figuring out that everything around you just got quiet. All your friends have kind of moved on, or you realize how you made friends and now that's changed, and you making friends is different. It's like created a quiet spot in my life for reflection, for getting me ready for the next step. And it's just strange how what you're describing is very similar to what I've been going through and what I'm feeling. And it's odd that we're now just having this conversation. But it's really kind of cool.
Some would say odd. Some would others say that it's kind of like timing, and it makes all the sense in the world. And so I want to expand upon the challenge part about that. And
yes,
that is,
please.
It's not just, again, not just to be tried. Well, you're not special. Nobody cares about you. It's not that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's really sitting with this. So then what are you going to do about that? Because it is my world, my life. I mean, I still got to live in it. I still got to sit with it. I still have to figure out what that means to me ultimately, and the people that I do impact, great or small. So great. So what do you, it's almost like a gift. If I give you a gift,
yeah,
the real challenge is, what are you going to do with it?
Well,
here's $1,000, here's $1 million, here's this insight.
Yeah.
What are you going to do with it?
I don't know. And that's a great thought and a great question. And being in education and having to go back after being out for a while, I see some of these kids that are coming back and stop by my room on a daily basis, or they see me and they want to come up, and I never, it's one of those things where you just give it out, and you never know. You may never know, may never see that person again, but you may have impacted that one moment in their life and they carry it with them, and you may never know that. And for me, I think whether you're special or not, you have to be able to do that on a daily basis, and know that just because you're upset, we're human. We're going to do those things. We're going to be upset. We're going to do stuff. But even in that moment, you may make a positive impression, or an impression on somebody that may change their life for the good, no matter what you do. And you just have to trust that. I mean, I'm a spiritual man, so you have to trust God has put you in that position for that. The recognition you get for it may never happen, and it may never come. And you might go through most of your life doing that. You just have to have a faith that that's one of the things we're put here for. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes,
we're going down a crazy. I mean, look, I could have this conversation. Let's do the second reset real quick. Thank you guys for listening. Some of you, I know there's a lot of you that are going to be listening to this afterwards. Please don't go telling. And I actually share any story you want. I'm good. Sean and I are having an authentic, purposeful conversation on trust, clarity, and traction. And this is probably one of the deepest trust and clarity conversations that we've had, because we're telling stories, and most people that are close to us probably don't even know. And you're out there listening to it and getting that. If you have any questions or comments, DM me. And if you get this later, just send me a message, or send me a Sean a message. So far, Sean, just any takeaway, because we've got about another 15 minutes max. Any takeaway so far?
Yes. And one of them is inspired by listening to what you've said before about dreams, chasing your dreams, following your dreams, things of that nature. And, looking back in terms of like trying to figure out what I would say to somebody who was young,
mm-hmm.
or even somebody that was older like us, is make sure that it's your dream. There's a lot of us, and I was one, and Maggie mentioned in her podcast about she wanted to be the CEO of a trans union or whatever, or the insurance company. I, at one point in time in my life, had a career goal of being the CEO of Schlumberger. I was never going to leave that company. And I remember there was inside Schlumberger, there was these career networking profiles, CNPs. You could go and click on somebody and see everything about them. And then there was this other little page where it was like a bio page, like all the patents and papers they'd written, where they were from, where they went to school. Every single employee inside Schlumberger had one. So, of course, people go look at the CEO, who at the time was Andrew Gould. And at the time was only the second CEO in the history of the company, a well-respected, successful CEO. And the very top of this page of this, what does Andrew have to say about life and everything? It was, they tell me that people come to my page to read it because it's me. Because I guess he was a controller before, and he just hadn't updated it. Finance guy, so it was kind of static and stale. And I think he got word from somebody saying, "Hey, man, people are checking out. You need to write something." So what he wrote, and this is one of these early moments where it kind of like cracked my image of what was happening in the world, was he said, people say that they're going to come to my profile and read and all the rest of the stuff. He said, I want to give you some advice. He said, if you think being the CEO of this company is great, let me tell you what my life is like. And he went on to list all the things that his life is like. He's like, I'm never home with my family. I don't see my wife and kids ever. I'm constantly traveling. And he started listing all these things about his life.
Yeah.
He's like, if you want to be the CEO of a company, this is what it means. This is the price you pay. And he goes, if this is what you're willing to do, then okay. And I remember sitting at my desk at that moment and go, I don't want that. I don't want that at all. I was just kind of in love with this idea of being the CEO. I think a lot of people get in love with the idea of being C-suite or EVP of this or super awesome this or, starting your own business and being a billionaire and the rest of the stuff and scratching, it's clawing your way to the top kind of stuff. And then we're told that that's the reason we're going to school. Like, what else could there be? And you got to earn a living and work hard. Nobody cares. All this other nonsense. It's not personal. It's not personal. It's business. All this stuff that I believe at the end of the day, from back to a clarity standpoint, couldn't be further from the truth. Like, what do you mean nobody cares?
Okay. All right. So here's my question. First of all, it's funny because I understand where your CEO is coming from. And that's exactly why I didn't want to go coaching major league or do a higher level, because I wanted a family and my business failed. I was out of a job for a long time and did everything I could to scrap and sold. But I have moments with my kids that I can never get back. And I was able to be there for certain things, and did Dancing with the Stars for a Cup of Joey fundraiser on the night of my kids' prom. Like, those things don't happen, and I don't get them if I'm the CEO of a company. But my question is, you brought something up and I've never thought about it. How do you know if it's actually your dream?
How do you know?
I don't know. Like, I've never thought about it. Because I wanted to be a baseball player, and that was my dream. It wasn't anything else. I wanted to play Major League Baseball. That's what I wanted to do. And it didn't matter how good or bad I was. And as my framework started to grow, in other words, as I advanced in higher levels, I realized I wasn't apt to that level. So I worked hard to try to get up to that level. It did bring me to 4 different schools in college because I wasn't good enough. I was skinny, catcher, and I wasn't good enough. Mentality, my mindset was there. I wanted to do that. And I've seen tons of kids do that. But the one thing, and when you said that, the one thing that in my story, this is my story, nobody else's, the one thing that connected is that I knew that was my dream. And it led me to I got to play under Mike Marshall, who's no longer with us, but was a Cy Young pitch. Still holds the record for the most games pitched in the major leagues. One of the smartest men I've ever met. He studied biomechanics and pitching and did high-speed film before there was before there was real good stuff back in the 60s. And we saw all that. That led me to becoming a college cheerleader, which I never would have thought I would have done. So that dream, even when you could see it was ending, it led me, because I followed it, to other stuff. Now, as I get older, and you kind of go, what's my next dream? What am I dreaming at this age? Because it's not what I'm seeing in front of me. But how do you figure that out? I would love to hear any advice you have, because I'm stuck. Like, how do you figure that out?
Well, I think part of it is filtering noise. Part of it, and what I mean by noise is the things that you've been told are important. And when did you agree that these are the priorities in your life, and that this is what it takes to make a dream come true? You have to have these things, right? Mm-hmm. It's almost like going to buy something simplistic, like buying a car. What you really need is all this nonsense over here, the super awesome features and whatnot, and this and all this, the shiny crap that just in the moment, because we're all human beings and they understand that, and because we are, seems like it's the thing that you want, right? And it goes back to what I said in the very beginning about slow is the fastest way. It's about, and while there's moments where, yes, intense focusing on something like make a 12-week year, yes, I get that. But at the same time, part of our issue from our culture is we want everything right now. And maybe the problem is there isn't an answer in the moment, and you have to sit with that to figure this out. And we don't want to take the time to get there, right? You played baseball, at least competitively to some degree, and you understand, and you've been through this enough. It's the work, it's the path, it's inside the chrysalis, it's the churning. Those are the things that provide. You were working towards this opportunity, and you went toward it because that's what you wanted, and you did not. It wasn't until you got there you even knew what it meant. So in terms of answering the question of how do you figure out what your dream is, I mean, there are some basics. Like, I mean, it's like a song, like when you hear a song and it resonates with you, there's a resonance. If what you love is the outcome of something, if you're told, oh, I could get this job as something and make $250,000 a year, if the fruit that you're looking at, you think it'd be great to make $250,000 a year, then all these other things would go away. Like, okay, I would argue that may be the first time where you can hit a pause button and step back and go, okay, what do you now? I know this gets really, really complicated because it's like, well, if I don't, Sean, if my dream is to like pick apples or be a barista at Starbucks, and making $8 an hour, my family's going to be homeless. So take this nonsense you're talking about and shove it because it's not practical. And I would say, okay, yes, to some degree, but like, what can you do if that's not, but you want to chase the other stuff, feel free. Just when you're sitting here 10, 20 years from now, and you have all this stuff, and it's back to you talking about biblical stories, when you've put all your talents and you've hidden all your talents, or you've put all this stuff in a silo and it's deteriorating and it's rotten and there's no real substance from it other than just some material gain, then maybe it'll make sense to you finally that you were never chasing your dream. You're actually living out somebody else's dream, and they're paying you to make their life better, not yours. And you haven't been in control of anything the entire time. And it's been a means to an end that you thought was the thing. And then what happens along the path is you find out ways to cope with those. We figure out other ways to make ourselves feel better and to justify, and then we get lost. That would be my argument. Back to talking about clarity.
That's clarity. Yeah, that's exactly the thought that just came through my head was, as you're talking, is absolute clarity. Like, how do you find clarity? And sometimes it happens within the moment. And sometimes it happens after multiple moments, and you're sitting there constantly going through what I need clarity on this. And you can't get it. And all of a sudden, everything that just happened over the last 5 years start rushing in. And there you go. Wait a second. I get it all now.
So and that's going to take back to my original quote, right? It takes time to learn a lot of things.
Correct.
But you got to step into it first. Yes. And it could be stepping in, could be stepping back. Like you're like, I didn't want to coach, but I don't want to teach, but I'm going to step back to do it. Because it's going to get me somewhere else. And it's believing that if your intention is back to the discovery, wisdom, transformation. Yeah. If you're trying to do that in earnest to understand, because like I said, back to the biggest challenge is what does all this actually mean? Like, and it's all wonderful to teach. It's all, quantum physics. You can learn about all this stuff, and you can understand German history, and you can become really well versed at all kinds of things, and AI, and you can whatever else, and technology. It's all business propositions and how to run this and how to do this and a marketing plan and a business. It's great. It's wonderful. But like, if it doesn't feed right in here, right. I just think eventually it's something. It just Maggie put it. I can go back to Maggie because she said, but people on their deathbed, they will remember. Probably won't remember what you did. They'll just remember how you made them feel. Mm-hmm. Right. And so if you're doing something that's not making you feel, then it's your own self. Then it's your own life. It's your own. It's sitting there on your deathbed. This becomes like one of these Rudy moments or whatever. Like, are you going to want to sit there and be filled with regret? Right. And just having followed something that wasn't even your dream.
Well, going back to the show, you're saying, basically what you're saying is trust the path. And it's funny because, I never want anything and I tell this all the time, I never want anything as a baseball player. I never wanted to be an educator. I had to do my student teaching because I had to get out. And I choose the school I'm student teaching. We won baseball state championship the year. As I was an assistant coach, even though I was a volunteer, I was still an assistant coach. Same thing. I moved to Texas. I tried to find a job with a couple of months, and I had somebody talking me into going into education. She was an AP, Marlene Skiba. And I was like, no, I'm not. So finally, I went and interviewed, didn't get the job because I couldn't explain what the I formation was and a couple of other things, which is funny because I knew it. I just didn't know. I'd never taught it before.
Sure.
And from that, the guy and I went and got a second interview later on because I went for a job, worked a day and went, no. Ended up hiring me. Long story short, I ended up going with him. He and I became good friends, but I moved on because I met my wife, my now ex-wife at the time. So we moved up here, had no idea what the Woodlands was like, was part of 3 state championships while I was here. And it's like, sometimes you just have to trust the path, and maybe it's not about the dream. It's about trusting the path that leads you to the dream. You just have to find the clarity by keeping your face open and your mind open and be able to take in, like you were talking earlier, absorb what's around you and take in the things that are around you, no matter what's going on. Look, we're almost out of time. We're probably a little, one thing I always want to end on though, Sean, and I'm gonna let you go, advice, because I give advice to younger generation. You trust, clarity, traction, anything. Just what advice, if somebody's young listening to this, what advice will you give them?
Yeah, they're in a much different place than we are. And I'm not trying to get political and I definitely do not like the doomsayer attitude of like, it's never been worse than it is right now.
Yes.
That's not true. That's not true at all.
Correct.
If you're sitting on the coast of England in 1940 and the entire continent, the entire Western Europe is occupied by Germany, that you're probably in a difficult space. If you're in a concentration camp in World War II, if you're in the middle of a plague or a famine somewhere, I'm not trying to downplay that. I think the amount of information that is available today, AI is kind of a byproduct of that. We thought for a long time that if we had all the information, if we knew everything, it would make us smarter and life would be better. It turns out that this has made life extremely difficult. Because back to that first word, and that's trust. The problem is where nobody knows, even we don't like it. Like now we're just not sure. We're not sure to trust. Who do we trust anymore? It's hard. How do we even know this is you and I on here, not some AI generated thing that they can modify years from now? And even so, it's really it's always the trust has been an issue. Information integrity has been an issue for a long, long time.
Yes.
It's just that now it's so prominent that I think they're going to have to be vigilant. They're going to have to be extremely just committed to learning and understanding and contemplating at a level that I know I didn't have to when I was younger, that I do now, that you're going to have to just understand, can I trust anything I even see? I can't even trust a phone call and hear the voice of my daughter now. Yeah. Right. And we have to have code words, and how do you make sure that they know who we are, that that's really you and not something that's been generated. These are real things. Correct. And it's an extension of the fact that we know so much. So correct. I think from a young person's standpoint, it would be recognizing that you're up against this and that you're going to have to become your own expert in terms of what's going on out there. It's going to require diligence, and it's going to require a commitment to understanding all aspects of humanity and all things that are possible, and sitting with the difficulty of what that means to even be able to trust whether or not you're being told the truth about anything. Right. That is a massive, it's a complex issue, to say the least. And so I would just say that but I also believe that human beings at the same time are capable of managing that. And I don't want to be a Debbie Downer as far as that goes. It's going to be difficult. And so that, keeping that in mind, I think, is important.
Yeah, no, and trust and clarity are huge, especially working with these young people. I see a lot of that. The funny thing is they can do really well with their technology and stuff, and they can find things that we can't find. There's this advancement that's possible based on what you're talking about. If our youth will understand how trust and integrity are important in our lives, of how I think there could be an advancement of human beings with this combination of technologies. My fear is that we've got too many that are relying on it and they're sucked into it, because if you got parents that are not connected, which there's a lot of them, then you're connected to everything that's sitting in your face. What do you do with it? How does it create you? How does it create dreams? they need to be very careful with what they're doing and be aware of the impact that they can have, and this can have on their lives and the lives that they want, and the dreams, going back to what you said, the dreams that they want moving forward.
So last piece, just because I feel obligated to put this on there, but it's an advice, specific advice. We tell people, when I talk to people about artificial intelligence, I say it's the wrong way to describe it. It's assisted intelligence. It assists you. Don't let AI make a decision that you wouldn't want to make on a personal level. Like, there has to be at some point in time the importance of the decision. Like, where a human being needs to make that kind of decision, not some algorithm. It's just an algorithm. It's a comparative analysis of data based on patterns and context and how you prompt it. That's fundamentally what it does. We do this as human beings. Your mom did it when you were a kid, and she knew when you were sick because she understood enough time. Like, I know my kid because I've seen it enough. I can sense patterns and whatever else. It's the same thing.
Right.
Okay. But it's meant to inform so that you can make a better decision. It can actually be, to your point, quite amazing. And I use it all the time in that context. Like, I use it to challenge, create, context and perspective, but do not let it make your decisions for you. Love it.
No, agree. And I tell the young people all the time exactly the same thing. Let's end it there because we're going to be out of time here soon. Look, please, let's connect. Follow the show and subscribe to my Tick Pulse letter. Sean, please share your LinkedIn information or how people can connect with you.
Yeah, LinkedIn's a great way to do it. McCoy 4 is the whole browser part. I'm down here in Houston, work for CBT. I'm always open for questions and about any of the topics that come up. I'm more than happy to help people, and I have helped people with all kinds of things, including the other event we were talking about. So,
no, that's awesome. Look, Sean, thank you for being my guest on What Makes You Tick. It was awesome. Look, let's go out and make an impact on the lives of communities through trust, traction, and clarity, and all those at the same time. Be transitional over transactional, and you can find me on LinkedIn. Stay connected to future episodes in our conversation and other conversations that are upcoming. Sean, man, it's been amazing. Find my friend and make sure you please and connect with him, please. Next episode, I'll have another good friend. We'll talk a little bit more about people. Join me next week when my conversation is with Tori Raspberry, an account executive with Hunter Hamilton, and always a good friend. Thank you very much for joining us. See you.